Blessed Day Reflection by Abijah listeners. My name is Abijah Grant, and we are here to reflect on our life journey. We will be discussing topics related to self-awareness, self-improvement, and mental health. Also, the purpose of this safe space is for us to be free to discuss the ups and downs, celebrate the wins, and talk about ways to improve the lows. So welcome to this podcast, and I hope you gain something from this time we share together. Hello everyone, how you doing? It is your girl Abijah Grant. Welcome back to another episode of Reflection by Abijah. I hope that you are doing well and having a blessed day. At the time of recording this episode, it is very early in the morning. But I like recording these episodes. I notice early in the morning because this is when I feel like my thoughts are the most free. And I don't know, I just like to take the mornings to really self-reflect. Let's go ahead and get into this podcast episode. So I wanted to talk about relationships. As you can tell, if you've been listening to the podcast, lately I've been talking a lot about relationships. But in this episode, I wanted to talk about combating the fear of being alone. And the reason why I wanted to get in discussion about this is because I talked about how when I was in my narcissistic relationship and I left that narcissistic relationship, in the beginning process, I was getting into the next relationship and not really focusing on myself, not really focusing on what I needed in order to be self assured, and have my own self identity. And I would tend to get into the next relationship. And, um, I say this in relationships doesn't have to always be sexual. I just want to throw that out there as well too. There could be friendships or not necessarily friendships, but you could be dating someone and it never leads to anything more than just, you talking or whatever the case may be. So I just say that all to say, but we are grown out here in these streets, but I did want to say that as well too. Let's get back into it. So I talked about how that I would find my identity or try to find my identity in the next relationship. And what I learned now at 40, 39, 40, when I started going to therapy and I started talking a lot about just how I was feeling and how I guess you say my lifestyle was. Um, and it kind of was a light bulb to me in a sense that I don't like being alone. Like in the beginning, I did not like being alone, and I felt like I was jumping from relationship to relationship due to that fact. But the funny part is that I am the only child. I am the only child, so it's kind of like I'm used to being alone. Like I should be used to being alone. I just think it's something internal with me, and I guess you could say I am at this point still trying to figure out the reason of why, but I knew that it was an issue. So the thing is that I feel like many people, including myself, we have the fear of being alone. I'm going to give you some possible root causes. The top one for me, I feel like, is trauma. I feel like trauma and how maybe your upbringing was or how my upbringing was could be the root cause of why I can't, or I can't say I can't. I do not feel like being alone sometimes. The second bullet point I have is abandonment and neglect. Um, I want to say abandonment, maybe there was something that you desire from someone and they weren't there, or they were there initially, but then they pulled away. Neglect obviously means that you just weren't taken care of, you weren't thought about, you weren't considered. Glorification of companionship in society. So we know society loves to say, well, you should be in a relationship, or the only way that you are seen is if you are in a relationship. Yes, society puts out this persona that is the all to be all, which obviously we know is here nor there. If you choose to be in relationships because you should want to be in a relationship, not because society is telling you to be in a relationship. The next one I have is self-worth due to attention received. So self-worth meaning that you are getting what validation, and I speak about this a lot in other episodes. You're getting the validation from your partner, and that is boosting your ego, I guess you could say, and that is boosting your self-worth. For you feel like, okay, I have to be in a relationship because I don't want to feel alone. I don't want to feel alone because I'm seeking the attention from said individual. Okay. So that is problematic. Just want to let you know that is problematic, and that is one of the bullet points for me. I feel like it's a primary bullet point in my trying to not feel that way of needing for someone to be there. So I have the next one, the desire to be in a relationship simply because it felt like that's what it's supposed to uh, be, pretty much. And again, attachment issues. And this kind of dabbles a little bit into the abandonment side of things as well too. A lot of times with abandonment, we love to attach ourselves to people or situations that we feel like we're getting what we need to get from the situation, because we're trying to pour back into or fill the bucket of loneliness. Therefore, we are holding on to whatever said thing. Now, the desire to be in relationships because it felt like you were supposed to is like your own internal validation. Again, this also ties back into self-worth of simply because you think that that is what it's supposed to be, that you're supposed to be in this relationship, that you just are in this relationship. I kind of felt like this was a slight little situation for me as well too. I don't want to say it was the primary, but it was a slight 10% of the reason why I continue relationships that should have not been in, and I should have been focusing on myself. Now I have the next bullet point as feeling of being inadequate, as if you're not successful unless you are in a relationship. And this kind of ties into this society side of things, of society saying that you need to be in a relationship just because. But the part of you feeling inadequate is like you feel like you're not successful. You haven't accomplished anything because you're not in a relationship. You see what I'm saying? Um, but it also ties into the loneliness of you feeling like you need to be in a relationship, because without you being in that relationship, you feel inadequate. But you feel inadequate because you can't be lonely. You see what I'm saying? Like everything is kind of like starts in the beginning, and then there's like different gradual bullet points or different gradual divots that you fall into for the reason of why you're moving from this place to this place. Now, in addition to that, there could be other reasons why. These are just some of the ones that I did want to highlight for you. So I just kind of want you to think about that as I get into the housekeeping rules, and then we're going to jump right back into the podcast episode. So, if you're listening to this podcast on Spotify, be sure to hit the follow and notification button so Spotify lets you know when I release a new episode. As well, leave me a comment on what you enjoy about the podcast and give me a 5-star rating. This is how you can support my podcast. And the disclaimer is, I am not a licensed psychiatrist or therapist. My suggestions and my guests are based on general knowledge and life experiences. If you're considering making significant changes or dealing with personal issues, seek and talk to a licensed mental health professional. So, let's get into this topic. So, loneliness often stems from different experiences. It's rarely just one thing. So, as you heard earlier, I list 6 different bullet points of where loneliness comes from or can come from. And as I mentioned, there could be other reasons of why you are feeling lonely, why you are constantly combating loneliness. Okay. In addition to that, with the loneliness is always what I notice for me. I can't say for you. For me, is this ongoing desire to feel a connection to a situation, a connection to someone. In this particular topic, we're talking about a connection to someone, and needing that person, to be with in order to find, um, in order to accept ourselves, in order to feel connected to ourselves, because that's the only way that we can feel connected. Now, as I mentioned before, I've dealt with loneliness a lot. I've dealt with loneliness a lot in my eternal being, I guess you can say. And I feel like the top two for me, and these are just the ones that I'm highlighting, but there could possibly be others, is due to me having no self-worth, or I don't want to say no self-worth. Let me change that. Lack of self-worth. Like the self-worth is there, but it wasn't where it needed to be. And then the need to be in a relationship because I felt it was the right thing to do at that particular time due to my attachments. When I sat down and I jotted down these notes, I really examined my life, and I really just was wanted to highlight kind of just this discovery that it's been a road for me to combat loneliness. It's been a road for me in trying to, I guess you could say, fix this quality about myself, because it does, how can I say, it's a factor. It does play sometimes in how I deal with relationships, whether it be a personal relationship like partnership or something like that, as well as friendships. Even though we're going to focus on, you know, relationships with a partner right now, not necessarily on friendships. But I remember after breaking up with my narcissistic ex, and again, you could listen to that episode and hear all that. I started seeing someone new, and in the beginning, everything felt fresh. Everything felt very exciting. We know how that could be. You get into a new situation, and you feel like you're in the honeymoon stage, and everything is peaches and cream. Life is good. You're smelling all the roses, and you are just feeling great. And then it comes to a time and when the excitement fades. Now, that may not be your experience. I'm just discussing about my particular experience. The excitement may never fade from whatever relationship that you are in, and it may continue. But again, I'm speaking about the story that, or share with you the experience from a prior relationship that I have been in. So, as I mentioned, the excitement fades and things begin to change. I remember him telling me when I was dating this person, I remember him telling me as the excitement started to fade and the roses started to, wilt, I guess you can say. Um, Him saying we don't have to be together all the time. I remember him stating to me he wanted to spend time with his friends, but since I was constantly around, um, he was basically did not have the time to be around his own people. And with that, he started to pull away. And me at that time was like, what is going on? I don't understand. Like, I am that girl. So why would he not want to be around me all the time? So now thinking about this in my 20s. Some people may find this to be suspicious, but at 41, this is no longer suspicious to me because now I understand what he was saying. Basically, he was saying, I need my own identity, and my identity does not consider you. And it's not to sound mean, but my identity is not you. I have my own identity. And he felt like he couldn't breathe in based on my understanding, and he felt like I was attaching myself so much to him. But back then, my 20 something year old self felt insulted. I thought, again, I am that girl. Why wouldn't you want to be around me all the time? In my mind, I was the one making him look good. And I felt it wasn't the other way around because at that time I felt like I'm gonna be honest with you, I felt like my shit didn't stink. I felt like that saying, I was the bee's knees. I was that girl. There was nothing that you could have told me at that time. Because I was very cocky. But this is the thing, I was cocky more so in relationships. Like, I don't want to say I was conceited because that is not the right. I just felt like you could do no better than me. Let's go ahead and take a quick break. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning into Reflection by Abijah. Feel free to check out the podcast Facebook and Instagram page. The links will be available in the show notes. Let's get back to the podcast. And in my mind, I just couldn't understand why he didn't want to be around me. Now, I want you to take a moment. I want you to think about that. I want you to think about the words of me basically stating that I make you look good and not the other way around, because that is how I felt. Like, again, I am that girl. So I make you shine. You know what I mean? I make you shine, so therefore, what's going on? You understand what I'm saying? So now, 41-year-old me, I am on this healing journey. I am no longer 20-year-old me. 20-year-old me was definitely in a different mindset. I realized that I was out of touch with myself. And this is a self-discovery. I said when I really sat down, I started to examine my life and just the different choices that I made, the mistakes that I could have avoided, but at the time I didn't avoid because, again, I just didn't know any better. But I realized I just was not in touch with myself. I did not have any self-identity, and I spoke about this before. I felt empty because I truly just did not understand who Abijah was. You understand what I'm saying? And I felt like, okay, I was who I should be with this person around because I was looking for this person to give me validation, and it kind of, in a way, live vicariously through their life. I feel like that was a factor as well too, now that I'm thinking about it, because that's not even a bullet point that I jotted down. But now that I'm having this conversation with you guys, living vicariously through their life, attaching myself to their life in order to validate myself, in order to know who I was. It's like I was finding who I was through them. That's bizarre, guys. Ain't crazy. I guess it is bizarre and crazy, but that is whoa. Isn't that whoa? Like, now that I'm thinking about it, yeah. Interesting. So let's go ahead and continue this. So now 41-year-old me knows who I am. And that's just due to me working on myself. But at the time I didn't know who I was. At 20-year-old something, I didn't know who I was. Also, in addition to that, I felt like I didn't have any purpose as well too. I was honestly, now thinking about it, I was looking for a deeper meaning of life. I was feeling like I didn't understand what life was supposed to be. It was always kind of like that nagging question. And sometimes that question still ponders me to this day. Like, am I living enough life? Am I doing more to for myself and putting myself as priority and not living vicariously, I guess you could say, through somebody else's eyes? Because at the end of the day, let's just keep in mind, if that person is not there anymore, God forbid, I'm not saying that, you know, you know, I'm just saying the relationship ends or whatever the case may be, the person is not there anymore, and you've done attach yourself to that individual. How are you supposed to continue your journey in life? Like, I will hope that you will want to continue your journey in life, and not feeling like that when I think about this, I think about relationships. When a marriage ends and then a person's done, how can I say? A person is done morphed and restructured their life surrounding their partner so much that they're unable to go on. And when I say this, because I wasn't gonna touch on this, I think about when a partner passes, right? And then the partner who's left behind, shortly thereafter, sometimes they pass. Why? Because they've attached themselves to this individual. So, in that context, I know I'm a little bit all over the place, but in that context, I understand the reason of why you are attaching yourself to your partner. But also at the same time, I feel like you have to have your own independence. Like, I feel like you can attach yourself to your partner but still be yourself. You know what I mean? Like, I think that it's a possibility, because that's where I'm at. I'm trying to It's like I'm in two different worlds. My feet are in two different worlds. I'm with my husband. We have our situation and everything. But at the same time, I'm still a Bia. I'm still myself. I cannot live. Part of my life is lived with him, but I still have my own identity at the same time. Like, does that make any sense? Let me know in the comments down below if that makes any sense. So the questions I started to ponder at this time when I was feeling lost is, how can I be comfortable being alone, and how can I not be clingy in my relationships? Like, these were the top two priority questions for me, because what happened in that relationship is due to the continuous clinginess. Because even though he told me, okay, I wanted to spend time with my friends, I wanted to do my own thing without you being there, I was still very clingy, again, because I didn't know any better, I guess you can say, and I smothered him. And I laugh at it now, but yeah, that's what I did. So eventually the relationship ended, along with just other things, just how my behavior was. One of the things I have mentioned in the last episode is I was very angry after my relationship with my ex. And that's the reason why I always say that you should be taking the opportunity to focus on yourself after in the relationship. Because what you don't want to do is take all the garbage that happened in your past relationship. I mean, maybe the relationship ended on good terms, but a lot of times relationships don't. But all the garbage that you've taken from your past relationship, you do not want to transfer that to your new relationship. So therefore, you should be focusing on um, working on whatever went wrong, finding solutions if it's something that dealt with you in regards to something that you did, before you move on to the nation, or before you move on to the next relationship. But that's not what I did. I was angry, and I took the anger, and I thought, oh, okay, this person is a completely different person. But I was letting my anger and my insecurities from that past relationship transfer to the new relationship. You see what I'm saying? But anyways, getting back into the topic, I started to ponder, ways I can not feel lost. So I put together basically a plan of action at this time. I realized I needed to find my own joy in myself. I needed to be in a solo state without having anybody be there. And I needed to be comfortable with that. Um, so I started working on joy. I stopped looking at alone time as a negative, and I found ways to enjoy my own company. So, what I did, some of the tasks or things that I did to, I guess you could say, alleviate this feeling of loneliness is I started solo dating. I started taking myself on solo dates, to the movies. I started taking myself to dinner. In Brooklyn, at this time, I lived in Brooklyn. They used to have this, or they still do, but this place called the Promenade in downtown Brooklyn that overlooks the water. If you know anything about me, I love being by the water, so I would go there, and especially like during the summertime. I would take my little blanket, I'll do like a picnic in the park. And this was just my way in trying to work on finding joy within myself and just showing up for me. I started working on my personal goals. At this time, I wanted to pursue further education because I had only my associate's degree and I never took school very seriously at that time. I had mentioned that before. My career wasn't going anywhere. I felt very stagnant at that time as well too. And this is the reason why I said I was trying to find the meaning of life, like the purpose of life. So I decided to go back to school to go pursue my bachelor's degree. And then that helped a lot with my self-esteem. I want to say it helped a lot with my confidence as well too, because at that time I was so passionate about school and I put so much value on education, and I was taking it seriously, and my confidence started to grow as I was getting good grades, as I was getting, I guess you could say, not praise from teachers because teachers never praised me, but the grades that I was getting was kind of like praise that I can actually do this for myself. Like, I was finding happiness in school. And that's the reason why I think, a lot of times people say that you should be doing hobbies and things that pour back into you because this is going to bring that joy back into your life. So I noticed that school very much did that for me. Also, in addition to that, I set up a routine for myself about what I wanted to accomplish for that day, for that week, for that month. Having a routine for myself gave me less time of feeling lonely. I knew kind of like what I was going to do that particular day. I knew who I was, if I was going to be interacting with someone, I knew who I was going to be interacting with. But what I tried to do is find or do more things that didn't involve people, because again, at this time I was working on myself. Like, I was working on just getting me to a place of me being happy within. So as I began to introduce all these activities and goals that nurture me, the question was always like, should I be in a relationship? Like, honestly, I really pondered like, okay, you worked on yourself. Is this the time to be in a romantic relationship? Um, and at this point, I want to say I was kind of scared to even jump into a next relationship because I wanted to make sure that I worked on myself. Like, I didn't want another relationship to end because I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do for myself. You know what I mean? I didn't want it to be clingy to a next partner in a way I kind of felt like responsible. I felt responsible for how things ended with my, not the narcissistic ex, but the ex at that time. Um, and I just didn't want to jump into a next thing and be clingy and try to attach myself to this person. You know what I mean? So when I started to think about this whole idea of being in a next relationship, I would do a reflection. on whether I wanted the relationship out of validation or attachment to this individual, or if I genuinely desired to build a meaningful connection with this individual. Now, until I could actually realize or answer the question in knowing that I want to pursue this relationship for the right reasons, and I felt like I could work on myself, or I have already worked on myself, so I was entering this relationship in a place of healed space. I decided to hold off dating, and I had mentioned that before. I decided to hold off dating for a while because I just felt like I did not want to go down this road again. Now, also, the reason why I paused getting into a relationship is I didn't want to be hurt again. I did not want to be hurt again, and that is one of the, I guess you could say, key things I want to touch on, is that, and I've mentioned this before in other episodes, is that you do not necessarily need to be in a relationship to validate yourself. Like, you can be happy by yourself. And that's how I could say that you need to combat loneliness, is understanding that you have to be happy with it. You have to find that joy and do all the things that is pouring into yourself before you can even jump into a next situation. Now, one of the other things that really helped me is I started to build connections with people who weren't a romantic relationship, and specifically with other women who are maybe looking for friendships and things like that. I remember when I was in school, I started to make a lot of connections with other females, and we started to hang out, and that started to also help with the loneliness as well too, because now I'm doing activities with those friends, and I'm not home just sitting there twiddling my thumbs, or I'm not out and about and feeling like, okay, you're by yourself, you're not with anybody. People are going to be looking at you like you're weird, or, when you tell people, oh yeah, I'm going out by myself, people are like, well, why would you do that before, or why would you do that? That's different and everything. But what I realized now is that I genuinely enjoy being alone. Um, and it started to change. It started to change where I felt confident being alone. I can make my own decisions without anybody else being there. Yes, and I'm saying, like, and I was fine with that. I realized I didn't necessarily need for somebody to be there. If I chose to be in a relationship, it's because I want that person to be there. It wasn't a need of them taking care of me, or wanting to in the context, I say taking care of me because your partner should always be taking care of you. But I didn't, it was, I don't, it's, I'm trying to say need. I'm trying to think of the right word. I just chose for them to be there. It wasn't like as if they were there, I would lose something for me. Yes, and I'm saying I would lose out on me, or something would change about me. Yes, and I mean, like, it was as if the person was there, they were just something in addition to the positivity in my life, but my life is still positive without them being there. Does that make any sense? Let me know in the comments down below if that makes any sense. Because I'm just thinking about this as I'm recording this episode for you guys. But yeah, that is pretty much how I am combating loneliness, how I combated loneliness in my 20s. As I mentioned before, it still comes in here and there now in my 40s as well too, but less, way less than when I was younger. And I think that it's obviously way less because I love me. I know me. But sometimes that that question does come in. Like, what is my life meaning enough? That's just something I constantly am working on. Constantly just chugging along and doing all the things that brings me peace. So, yeah, guys, but that is this week's episode. Again, this is probably maybe another one where it is all over the place. But I hope something in my conversation you were able to learn about yourself through me, through my words, and take away with some knowledge on how to combat loneliness if you are personally dealing with it as well too. And just remember, your space is your space, and you should be comfortable in your space. And it's okay. And if people got something to say about it, screw them. You understand what I'm saying? Because if you're happy within, then that is the most important part. Whatever you have to do to be happy within, long as, not doing anything crazy or anything like that, then do it. Because what other people got to say is not important, to be honest with you. It honestly is not important. And that's something also I learned, was to not give a damn about what the heck other people got to say. Because when you live my life, when you're me, then you can have an opinion, I guess you could say. I want to say that's a little bit touchy when you're in a marriage and everything like that, because you do have to take into consideration your partner. But at the end of the day, your partner should always want the best for you. So if it's something that you need for yourself, they should be on board, to be honest with you. So, yeah. But guys, that is, again, where I am going to leave this podcast episode. I was going to end it before, but I guess that little tidbit of information wanted to come out, and God wanted me to touch on that. And yeah, stay blessed out there in those streets. Make sure that you treat others kindly out there in those streets. And God willing, I will talk to you guys in another podcast episode. All right, have a good day, guys. Bye. Thank you for listening to Reflection by Abijah. Let me know in the comment section what you thought about today's episode, and share the podcast with your friends and family. The link will be available in the show notes.